I saw this recently when it comes to VeChain. Very recently, VeChain, they made a post about a trailer, and the trailer was about VeChain and Global Sustainable Trade Initiative. Now, nothing I say is financial advice. However, in this post, they have this statement saying how they've used blockchain to save 300,000 kilograms of plastic. And they say they're just getting started. Now, I've taken the liberty to do a little bit of math and calculate that in terms of pounds. Keep in mind, 300,000 kilograms, that's around 660,000 pounds. You know what I mean? When I think about VeChain, am I thinking about, hey, you know what? They've used blockchain to save hundreds of thousands of pounds of plastic. No, I don't think about that, but now I do. So I find it pretty interesting and I find it pretty cool. Now, it's still around 27 times lower than 30 cents. And people like to tell me, well, if all this type of stuff is coming out about VeChain and all this, if they talk about the Hayabusa upgrade and all that, and they say, why is, despite all that, VeChain, or should I say its primary native token called VET, why is it not really doing much? Well, first of all, no altcoin season. So this type of stuff may not really impact VET in that way. And also on top of that, the sentiment when it comes to altcoins just hasn't really changed either. I mean, if VET, for whatever reason, had the sentiment it had around a year ago or something like that, it'd be a completely different case, right? If we saw a post like this. So overall, when I take a look at VET, I just haven't given up when it comes to VeChain. I still like the project. And the reason why I'm still thinking hypothetically about 30 cents is because not only do I like the fundamentals of VeChain, but I also like the exposure that it has, at least perceivably in my mind, because I take a look at what VeChain did with the UFC, and also I take a look at what it did with Power Slap, and also on top of that, I take a look at VeChain Thor, which a lot of my friends out there kind of consider it not to be the biggest, not to be the most popular, not to be the most revolutionary, but actually as one of the most reliable, they would say. Why? It's because ever since 2018, supposedly zero network outages. That's kind of difficult to achieve for a lot of other projects out there. That's not that easy, right? Having a blockchain run smoothly like that for many, many years, it's not that simple in some cases. We've seen many other projects out there, far bigger, experience multiple network outages just even in a time span of a year, let alone ever since 2018 all the way now in 2026. You know what I mean? That's a pretty amazing track record in my opinion. Again, it may not be the biggest, it may not be the most popular, it may not be the most revolutionary, but at least it seems reliable to me. And sometimes that's kind of a criteria that some enterprises out there care about, because in terms of supply chain management, sure, they want it fast, right? They want it to be more efficient, but isn't being reliable sometimes also a quality that is often looked for? Because think about this, right? What's the point of something being very fast and very kind of efficient if it's not reliable? You know what I mean? Imagine if I ordered pizza from a restaurant. Sure, it's fast, it's quick, but it delivers it 1 out of every 3 orders. It's like, okay, that's not that reliable. You know what I mean? Sure, it may taste good, it may be fast when they can actually deliver, but what happens if it's unreliable? So I think VeChain sometimes, what it does in terms of making up for its lack of popularity or sort of lack of recognizability, I think they make up for it through the reliability of the VeChain Thor blockchain. That's the way to take a look at it. So overall, I just, haven't given up when it comes to VeChain. When it comes to VET, hypothetically, 30 cents is still on my mind. Sure, it's around 27 times lower than that, but at around a 26 billion market cap, in which it would have at that point, actually, considering current circulating supply. First of all, it's not going to be breaking any records. I've seen Shiba Inu reach around 40 billion. I've seen Dogecoin reach over 80 billion in terms of market cap back in 2021. BNB even that year reached over 100 billion in terms of market cap. Around 26 billion is not going to be breaking any records by any means. It's not going to be like the most revolutionary thing of all time. But VeChain, is that such a ridiculous amount if there was an altcoin season? And also, I want to take this into consideration. Let's assume just this space overall, not just VeChain, right? I'm saying this space overall in terms of owners. Keep in mind, as of right now, there's supposedly over 600 million owners. That's allegedly more than ever before in history. And that's right now. That's not projected. That's not expected. No, that's supposedly right here, right now, right? And have we seen an altcoin season during this cycle? No. And still, We've never even seen Bitcoin at 200 grand or even let alone 150 grand. And there's already this many owners right now. In the peak of the 2021 cycle, there was around 300 million owners. But the difference is we saw an altcoin season in 2021. We haven't seen one right now. What would have been the case, or what would have happened, I should say, if let's say there was an altcoin season like in 2021, but with over 600 million owners? You know what I mean? Even back then, those projects did that. So what could they have done if there was like pretty much double the amount of owners? And when people like to say, well, you know what? Now there's more projects. Sure, there's more, but how many of those VeChain archetypes, right? How many of a project that has kind of the fundamentals and the vibe of VeChain really appeared ever since 2021? Arguably, I don't think there seems to be that many, just because I just don't notice that many competitors that appeared when it comes to VeChain directly. You know what I mean? That's just kind of my mindset. So there's more owners than back then, but the options pretty much kind of stayed more or less the same when it comes to the projects that actually have the quality. I'm not talking about memes and stuff like that. I'm just talking about more specifically projects that actually have that sort of use case, right? At least perceived to, in my perspective. Like, just again, not that many appeared. So if there's more owners, but the amount of options are still somewhat limited, the sort of attention is not going to be spread out too thin. It's going to be more concentrated on the ones that actually do exist, but at least there's way more owners than before. So this is why I haven't given up when it comes to VeChain. I'm still waiting. I'll wait and see what happens though, because I can't control, right, whether or not there's going to be an altcoin season. But in my perspective, if let's say there was an altcoin season, I feel like VeChain is something I'm looking into. It's not the only thing I'm looking into, but as the saying goes, a high tide raises all ships. If there's an altcoin season, I've seen historically that VeChain has been kind of one of the ones that went along with the ride, right? And would it be the same this time around? We'll wait and see. But it wouldn't surprise me considering how VeChain Thor, one of the most recognizable blockchains out there, not the most popular, but one of the most recognizable, it's known for its reliability. I see VeChain pretty much a lot when I watch the UFC. So that's already another like thing right there that I think gives VeChain more exposure. Also on top of that as well, you know, when it comes to UFC and its recent like deal that it had with Paramount, if there's more exposure when it comes to, let's say in the case of UFC and more people see VeChain, what could happen if there was actually an altcoin season? This is sometimes my perspective. But yeah, we'll wait and see. I have not forgotten about the hypothetical idea of 30 cents, but again, only time will tell. And I'm just staying patient. That's about it. That's the only thing I can do. And that's the only thing I will do, because that's, again, the only thing I can control. I can't control the market, but I can control myself. So I'm just controlling myself and just staying patient. That's about it. But I did like seeing this recent post when it comes to VeChain in terms of its sustainability. I find that to be pretty interesting. And I find that to be pretty awesome, actually, considering what they've been able to achieve in terms of, again, being able to save around 660,000 pounds of plastic, at least from the post that I see. But yeah, that's pretty much about it. I want to say thank you for watching, and I hope you have a very nice day. It's Mali the Captain, and I'll be sure to make more updates when it comes to VeChain.